I sat in divorce court at 56 years old, hands clenched together so tight my knuckles ached. Across the room, Leanne looked like she was posing for a magazine ad. Tailored blazer, hair glossy, not a single wrinkle on her smirking face. She didn't glance at me once. She didn't have to. That smug tilt of her chin said it all. She thought she'd already won. Her attorney stood up slow, like he had all the time in the world, and started talking like the judge was a kindergartner. "There's an 11-year employment gap," he said, real smooth. "No recent job experience, no post-secondary credentials. He'll need financial support just to survive." That hit me hard, even though I'd heard it before in mediation. It was different hearing it said out loud, in public, like I was just some useless lump she dragged around for over a decade. The judge, a woman maybe mid-40s with glasses sliding down her nose, looked over at me like I was a wounded stray dog. I didn't blame her. On paper, I looked like a guy who got left behind. No fancy title, no degrees. Just a husband who stayed home. Quick note, before listening, share which city or country you're watching from. Leanne's lawyer kept going. This was a one-sided marriage, financially. Mrs. Fontaine supported him completely. His decision to leave the workforce was voluntary. Voluntary. Like I woke up one morning and thought, you know what sounds great? Handing over my paycheck and dignity so my wife can call all the shots. I felt my jaw tighten. I didn't say anything. I didn't even shift in my seat. Then her attorney added the final twist, like he was doing the court a favor. In fact, Mrs. Fontaine has been covering all expenses while he, maintained the household. That was his contribution. Maintained. Like I was a damn Roomba. He sat down like he'd just cleaned up the trash. My lawyer, Marisol Vega, stood without a word. Older lady, wore navy everything, looked calm but sharp. She didn't shuffle a single paper, just looked straight at the judge and said, "Your Honor, I have one question for my client." The room went dead silent. You could hear someone shift in the back row, maybe clear their throat. No one moved. Leanne's head finally turned toward me, just slightly. Marisol nodded once. "Go ahead," she said. I stood up slow. My hands were still locked together, but I made myself let go. I looked right at the judge, but my mind was already back in that kitchen, 11 years earlier, when Leanne came home swinging a bottle of champagne and grinning like she'd just bought us a mansion. She dropped her bag on the counter, kicked off her heels, and said, "I got it. VP of Regional Accounts. It's official." She poured 2 glasses, but only toasted herself. That promotion came with a new tone in her voice. Not louder, just more final. Like the kind of tone you use when you've already made decisions and now you're just delivering them. She said, "We don't need 2 people stressed out. You should quit the warehouse." "It makes sense." I blinked. "Quit?" She leaned against the fridge, cool as anything. "We're not 20 anymore. You don't need to break your back in some dusty yard. Let me carry this. You've done enough. Let me." That's how she said it. She made it sound like love. Said she needed someone home, someone reliable, someone to handle life behind the scenes while she made real moves. I asked her to give me a minute to think. Too late. 2 days later, I found out she'd already told her coworkers that I was stepping back to support her career. That same weekend, we were at my sister's house for a cookout, and Leanne blurted it out while flipping burgers. "He's gonna stay home for a while. It just makes sense with my new role." Everyone nodded like it was a done deal. Like I had no say. Truth was, I was tired. The warehouse beat the hell out of my body. Early mornings, busted pallets, guys half my age calling out with hangovers. I came home every night sore, covered in concrete dust, hands so dry they cracked. A small part of me thought, maybe she was right. Maybe I could breathe for once. I gave my 2 weeks, not because I wanted to, but because backing out now would have made me look weak, indecisive. And Leanne knew exactly how to push that button. At first, it wasn't so bad. I cleaned up the house, organized the garage, made meals, did the shopping. I liked the quiet. I liked not waking up in the dark. Then came the questions. What did you even do all day? Why are you buying tools like you still work? You're spending like you earn it. Every word was a jab dressed up like concern. She'd come home, drop her laptop on the counter, glance at the groceries and say, "Organic eggs, really?" Or she'd scan the receipt like a TSA agent and say, "Paper towels don't need to cost this much." I laughed it off at first, thought maybe she was just adjusting to the new setup. But it kept going. Every purchase was a problem. Every hour I didn't spend scrubbing, something was unproductive. One night she got home late from some corporate dinner and stood in the doorway, wine drunk, arms crossed, staring at the dishes I hadn't finished. I thought this setup meant you'd handle everything. I said, I handled most of it. I'm not your maid. She tilted her head like I just said the dumbest thing she'd ever heard. I'm the one paying for all of it. Just keep that in mind. She walked off before I could answer. The next day I found out she changed the password on our joint account for security. I didn't even bring it up. I already knew how that would go. She said it was just for organization, that there were too many hands in the account, too many moving parts. But after she changed that password, my name disappeared from the main checking altogether. She gave me a card tied to a separate account, smaller, weekly transfers, no overdraft protection. Every Monday she'd send exactly $300. That was supposed to cover groceries, gas, odds and ends. Sometimes she'd forget and act annoyed when I reminded her. Like needing money made me the burden. Receipts started piling up on the counter with little check marks next to them. Not notes, not questions, just those marks, like a teacher grading my life. One Saturday she looked out the window and asked why my truck had 12 more miles on it than the last time she checked. I didn't even know how to respond to that. You went to Home Depot, she said flatly, holding up a receipt. But it doesn't take 12 miles to get there and back. I laughed, thinking she was joking. She wasn't. You're being defensive, she said. No, I'm being talked to like I'm on parole. She rolled her eyes. It's not about control, it's about accountability. I said, to who? She walked out of the room without answering. Friends dropped off without warning. Guys I used to grab lunch with would text once or twice, then stop. I asked her about it and she shrugged. They're not your people anymore, she said. They were dragging you down. I knew what she meant. None of them wore suits. None of them had 5-year plans, but they were mine. We talked about engines, drywall, where to find cheap tools. They reminded me who I used to be. But Leanne hated anything that pointed me backward. Dead-end work, she called it. That was her favorite phrase. Dead-end people doing dead-end work. I started to believe her. I stopped answering calls, started making my meals smaller, stopped buying the things I actually liked because they were unnecessary. She used to come home and scan the fridge like she was running an inspection. If I picked the wrong kind of coffee, I'd hear about it. This was $10 more than the regular. Why? Because it tastes better. I'm just saying, be mindful. You're not working right now. I gained 27 pounds over those first couple years. Not because I was lounging, not because I was living good. It was that slow, dull heaviness that comes from being frozen in place, from not knowing if the next choice you make will be too much. I'd wake up after she left in the mornings and just lie there, staring at the ceiling. The silence didn't feel peaceful. It felt like I wasn't allowed to exist yet, like I was waiting for permission to start the day. But the worst part wasn't the food or the money or the silence. It was the way she started talking to me, like I was her unfinished project. I need you stable. I need you focused. I need you to support me the right way. It was never, what do you need? One time I pushed back, told her I wanted to take a part-time gig at my buddy's hardware store, just to get out of the house. Her smile disappeared like I flipped a switch. You think working for $10 an hour makes you a man again? She said. You're lucky I carry us. Don't forget that. After that, I shut my mouth. I learned to want less, ask less, be less. That was the only way things stayed quiet. It was around that time Everett died, my granddad. He wasn't just blood, he was backbone. He taught me more in a busted garage than school ever did. Brakes, drywall, roofing, how to spot a liar, how to fix your own mess, and how to shut up when it mattered. He raised me in the space my father never bothered to fill. The funeral was tight-lipped and small, just how Everett would have liked it. He hated wasted words and hated pity even more. After the service, we sat in the lawyer's office while he read the will. Leanne crossed her legs like she was at a damn fundraiser, not a funeral. Then the lawyer said it. Everett left me $62,500. Just me, not us. No joint anything. No mention of Leanne at all. And then he handed me a sealed note in Everett's shaky handwriting. The whole thing was 5 words. If you ever need a way out, don't waste time feeling guilty. That sentence didn't whisper. It hit. I felt it in my chest. A clear-out buzz in my ears, like someone rang a bell inside my skull. I folded the note, tucked it in my pocket, and didn't look at Leanne. But I felt her. When that number came out, her face did this quick flicker, like a slot machine hitting triple sevens. I don't think anyone else caught it, but I did. Eyes wide, mouth twitch, pupils dialing in like the money already belonged to her. On the drive home, she started in fast, like she'd been holding it back. "We could finally redo the kitchen," she said. "Rip out those old cabinets. And the back patio. We've talked about that forever. Maybe pay off my car early." Her voice was all sugar, all planning. I didn't say much, just nodded every few seconds like I was half listening. But inside, I wasn't hearing cabinets. I was hearing my granddad again. I was hearing that sentence over and over. Don't waste time feeling guilty. I didn't want a new patio. I wanted out. 2 days later, I opened a new account at a credit union on the other side of the county. Used the last name I was born with, not hers. I told the teller I was starting a small contractor business, just something part-time. She smiled like it was nice to see someone getting back on their feet. I stashed the account paperwork in the bottom of my tool chest, under the old socket set Everett gave me when I turned 16. That night, Leanne asked if the inheritance had cleared. I said, "Still tied up in probate." Could take a while. She didn't question it. She figured I was too dumb to lie well. Over the next week, she kept throwing out suggestions like she was leading a project. "You should get quotes for granite. What if we add a pergola? Let's look at backsplash tile this weekend." I kept saying maybe and sure and we'll see, while my mind was already gone. Something in me had shifted. It wasn't loud. It wasn't dramatic. It was like a lock inside me had quietly clicked open, and I wasn't asking for permission anymore. That Friday, while she was still at work, I drove across town, took a cashier's check for 41 grand, and tucked it in a plain envelope inside my glove box. My hands were steady the whole time. The next Tuesday I got up before dawn, slipped out while Leanne was still asleep, and drove 45 minutes west to get away from every stop sign, gas station, and diner, where people knew me as her husband. I didn't have a plan, just a need to move. That's how I ended up in Hollow Creek. One blinking stoplight, 2 churches, and a gas station that still sold cassette tapes. On the edge of town, I saw a tiny, worn-down shop with a hand-painted sign leaning crooked on the fence. Hollow Creek Tool and Tire. 2 bays, rusted lift, broken Coke machine out front. The place looked like it hadn't seen good news since the Clinton administration. I parked and walked in. The guy behind the counter looked up like I'd interrupted a nap he didn't want to be awake for. "Are you here for the place?" he asked. "Maybe." He stood up slow. "Name's Dale. I've been running it since Charlie died. His kids want to sell. 41 for everything. Tools, lease rights, business name. You'd be buying a headache." I said, "I've had worse." We shook on it 2 days later. I filed for an LLC under my birth name, Walker, not Fontaine, rented a P.O. box, got a prepaid flip phone, and started telling Leanne I'd joined a 5 a.m. men's Bible group to get my focus right. She rolled her eyes but didn't ask questions. 5 a.m. wasn't glamorous. I showed up every morning by 4:30, turned the lights on, rolled open the bays, and waited. First week, dead. Second week, 2 tire plugs and 1 oil change. I paid Dale under the table and cleaned the hell out of the place when no one came in. Scrubbed floors, sorted tools, built a real invoice system off a $50 laptop I found on Craigslist. Some days, I stared at the open road outside and thought I'd made the dumbest move of my life. But other days, I'd get a rush job. Stripped lug nuts, busted water pump, seized caliper, and I'd feel that click in my head, the one that used to come naturally back at the warehouse. Schedule, parts, fix, bill, solve the problem, keep moving. Nobody cared what school I went to. Nobody asked about career paths. They just wanted their cars back. After a few months, we started pulling in enough to cover rent and supplies. Then a little more. Not much, but enough. Meanwhile, back home, I'd be walking in by 10 a.m., hands washed, Bible under my arm, telling Leanne the group was helping me grow. She liked the sound of that, gave her something to say to her friends. She didn't know I was spending my mornings elbow deep in engine grease, learning how to order rotors wholesale and juggle 3 repair jobs at once. She didn't ask why my nails were always dirty, or why my back started acting like I was 20 years younger. I think she just assumed prayer made me stand straighter. The first time I had to cover a customer refund out of pocket, I felt that old warehouse instinct kick in. how to juggle timing, parts flow, and customers who swore they knew a guy who could do it cheaper. It came back like it never left. I didn't tell Dale much about my life, and he didn't ask. He was the kind of man who believed in fixing things with duct tape and silence. Worked for me. By month 7, we were in the black. Not by much, but enough that I didn't feel like a charity case. I paid myself a tiny draw and stuck the rest in savings. I bought a used shop vac, some shelving, and a better jack stand. We patched the roof with scrap metal from a junked pickup Dale's cousin left behind. Every little win felt like proof I wasn't broken. Nobody handed it to me. I built it. The better the shop did, the later Leanne stayed out. Client dinners, networking happy hours, office emergencies. She started texting instead of calling. Always vague, always some new excuse that sounded just polished enough to avoid questions. But it was the smell that got me. Expensive perfume, not her usual stuff. Floral, bold, way too much of it. Not once or twice. Every time she came home late, she'd head straight for the shower without saying much, and I'd sit there in the living room staring at whatever show she left paused on the screen. Something inside me stopped blinking. I started checking the joint account at night, quietly, clearing the browser history after like I was hiding porn. I tracked the withdrawals, 2,200 here, $4,000 there, always round numbers, always spaced just far enough apart not to raise red flags on paper. I asked her about one of them. She didn't even look up from her laptop. That was an investment, she said. In what? You wouldn't understand. Then she added, I'm the one with the real job, remember? I didn't answer. I just nodded, and later that night I pulled out one of my old shop notebooks and started logging every withdrawal, the date, and whatever excuse she gave me. Same way she used to track my grocery receipts and truck mileage like I was some screw-up on probation. It felt ugly, but I wasn't playing dumb anymore. I knew what to look for. Patterns, signs, holes in the story. Meanwhile, my shop was growing. I opened a second bay, hired a part-timer named Austin. Good kid, 17, had a busted Corolla and a real eye for detail. One Friday afternoon, we were closing up, and he pulled out his phone. Hey, I didn't want to be weird, but I saw something earlier today at lunch. He turned the screen toward me. It was a photo of Leanne's Lexus in our driveway. Passenger door open. A tall guy in a button-down stepping out. Time stamped 12:14 p.m. I thought you weren't home during the day, Austin said. I'm not. I stared at the photo, then back at the kid. My pulse didn't spike. My hands didn't shake. Delete that after this, I said. Yeah, of course. I walked back into the office and closed the door behind me, sat in the desk chair, stared at the wall, and let the weight of it sink in. She wasn't just drifting. She was somewhere else now. Physically, emotionally, financially. But I didn't yell, didn't cry, didn't slam a damn thing. I just got calm. That calm stuck with me all week. Then Friday afternoon hit, and I came home with brake cleaner still stinging my fingers. I was unlocking the back door when this guy in a windbreaker stepped onto the porch like he was delivering flowers. You, my name? He asked, already flipping open a folder. You've been served. He said it flat, like he'd practiced my name. Handed over the thick envelope like it was nothing. Walked off before I could blink. The name at the top, Leanne Fontaine. Filed through some downtown firm that probably cost more per hour than I made in a week, back when I was unemployed. She wanted the house, both vehicles, half of anything I might be hiding, and full control of the story. In the filings, her attorney made it sound like I'd been dead weight for over a decade, voluntarily unemployed, no job skills, dependent to the bone. He used that exact phrase. He will require financial support to maintain even a minimal standard of living. That was their whole game. Paint me useless. Paint her generous. What they didn't know, what they never bothered to check, was that I wasn't who I'd been on paper. Not for a long time. I didn't panic. I called a guy who delivered parts to the shop, used to work for a PI, said he had a lawyer in his family. That's how I met Marisol Vega. She was maybe in her 60s, sharp eyes behind square glasses, straight shooter. First meeting, she said, I don't explain power to people who abuse it. We let them choke on their own story. She had me at that. We filed our formal response and complied with the court's requests. Income, assets, everything they asked for. But we didn't volunteer extras. Leanne's team never asked the right questions, so we didn't hand out any education. In mediation, she walked in wearing that same smug expression I'd seen at the barbecue 11 years ago, the one that said she already decided how the day would go. She looked across the table at me like she was being charitable. "I'm open to giving you some transition money," she said, soft and professional, like this was a favor, "so you can land on your feet." Marisol stayed quiet. We didn't need to argue. Then Leanne kept going. "I know Target's hiring. You do fine there, or maybe something seasonal. Once you build up a history again, you can apply for a real position." I smiled, nodded like I appreciated the advice. "You've always been good with people," she added. Marisol finally looked up. "We'll take that under advisement." Leanne kept pushing like she thought we were negotiating her mercy. "You could even do deliveries," she said, "like for Amazon or groceries. I think it'd give you some structure." I just said, "Thanks, I'll think about that." She leaned back like she'd done her part. It was wild watching her weaponize her own fantasy. She had no clue what I'd built, no idea I'd already bought the building for one of my shops outright, that I had payroll records, tax returns, everything, clean, documented, legal. She didn't ask, and I didn't offer. Let her bury herself in her version. We walked out of mediation with her smiling, like she'd just outmaneuvered a child. Outside, Marisol looked at me and said, "Let her keep talking. Court's where we speak." And I nodded, calm as ever. The judge gave Marisol the nod, and she stood with that same calm I'd come to trust. "Your Honor, I have just one question for my client." She turned to me. "Would you explain your current work and financial situation?" I stood, buttoned my jacket, and looked straight at the judge. "For the past 7 years, I've owned and operated Hollow Creek Tool and Tire," I said. "I started with 1 location. Today I run 4. You could feel the air shift. I bought the first shop with an inheritance from my grandfather, $62,500. I turned it profitable in under 2 years. After that, I expanded. Now I employ 29 people across 2 counties, former convicts, guys over 50 no one else would hire, young ones just learning the trade." Leanne shifted in her seat, eyes locked forward, frozen. "My owner's draw last year was $164,000 after expenses. I also own the building for 1 location outright. It's currently appraised around $310,000. All business income was filed separately under my LLC, which my wife never reviewed or had access to." Her attorney blinked, then started flipping through papers like he'd missed a page. He hadn't. He just never imagined I had a page of my own. Marisol handed the court a file. Tax returns, bank statements, LLC documents, payroll records. All of it clean. All of it dated. No games. Then she said, calm and steady, "And as for the claim of financial dependency, my client has quietly maintained the mortgage on their shared home for the past 3 years. His deposits, not hers." The judge raised an eyebrow. "Using funds from his business?" "Yes, Your Honor," Marisol said. Meanwhile, Mrs. Fontaine made substantial cash withdrawals from the joint account. $2,000 here, $4,000 there, which she labeled as investments. None of that money supported the household. Leanne didn't speak. Her lawyer's mouth opened, but nothing came out. The judge turned to her and said, "The fact you didn't know about his business doesn't mean he's unproductive. It means you weren't paying attention, and that speaks volumes about the nature of this marriage." Then the ruling came. I kept the house, kept all 4 businesses, no alimony either way. Leanne left with her car, her personal items, and whatever debt she'd built trying to fund her second life. We walked out silent. In the parking lot, she finally snapped. "You're a liar." I looked her in the eye, voice calm. "I lied to survive you." Then I turned, walked to my truck, drove back to Hollow Creek, unlocked my shop, and breathed deep. Not like a man who won, like a man who got himself back.